Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Nanmu model to take a look at, and this is one that's pretty exciting because a long time ago, well maybe not all that long ago, but it was quite a ways back, Nanmu had released a V-Rex, but this was prior to them doing the kind of Soul of the Dragon series, where they kind of make like a really cool pose of a limited version of the dinosaur they were releasing. So, recently, with the release of their Giganotosaurus, Nanmu had decided to go ahead and make a Soul of the Dragon version of their Shadow Monarch, aka the V-Rex. So, super exciting that they had gone ahead and done that because we didn't have one prior, and I actually quite love the Soul of the Dragon series, even if it is really hard to get a hold of at times because they sell out pretty quickly and they're definitely a hit amongst collectors. I'm definitely enjoying the series as a whole because I think the Soul of the Dragon has actually provided us with some of the best versions of the dinosaurs that they've been releasing. And obviously you can see what this one is again with the V-Rex. You can see a really nice image on the front of the box, absolutely gorgeous image actually. We've got the Nanmu logo up there. If we go to the side, there's actually just the Nanmu logo. We don't need to look over there, so we'll just flip it up here. And then you can see basically what's going on here on the bottom with some more images of the model. Definitely a really neat pose for this one. I'm actually beyond excited to get this one out and take a look at it and break up the reviews of the Giganotosaurus that we've had quite a bit of. But if we turn it around, because the other image is upside down, if I look at it, well, you know, the way I just had it a moment ago. But there you can see what the image on the back of the box looks like. Just another angle of the V-Rex right here on the back of the box. So let's go ahead, pop this open, and check it out. So first of all, we've got the art card, and yes, we have a totally different art card from the previous release of the Giganotosaurus, so it's nice to see that Nanmu has gone, ahead and created their own individual art card for the Soul of the Dragon series as well. And you can see on this art card, we basically have the V-Rex in the positioning that we see on the model itself, chasing away a pterosaur or two, so I guess that kind of gives us a clue as to what the motivation is behind the pose of the V-Rex. And then here on the back, again, love this stuff, the hand-drawn images, definitely a huge fan of this stuff. I just have always enjoyed these kind of, like, it almost looks like they just took a pencil and started drawing some dinosaurs, and, I mean, that I'm sure is what they did, but I love it, absolutely adore this side of the card every single time. And then we've got ourselves the base, and the base shows us that we've got a nice kind of earthy area with quite a bit of bones kind of laying around here, and obviously the bones, there's actually a little pile of them stacking up, look to potentially be some ape species, and obviously if you know what the V-Rex is, you know it's from Skull Island, you know it's related to King Kong, that's where it originates from the Peter Jackson King Kong film, so we can clearly see why we have those ape skulls and bones all over the place. And then here is our V-Rex, and this thing is actually a lot bigger than the older one. I did not expect that. I don't know if it's a whole lot bigger, but it's definitely bigger regardless. So we've got a little peg there on the foot. We'll slide it into the base potentially, somehow, one way or another here. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, I don't know. There we go. Now we got it in there. Just took a minute to figure that out. But there we go. We've got our V-Rex now on its base, standing here looking incredibly intimidating. Very cool pose for this one. I really quite like the positioning that they've given it, a very dynamic appearance, much more so than the almost kind of neutral position of the older one. And wow, the paintwork on this is phenomenal as well. And I think they always kind of step up their game a little bit with the Soul of the Dragon series, just because it's kind of meant to be like a special version, like obviously a limited edition, but a little bit of a higher quality than their standard releases. And I can definitely see that when it comes to the paint job. Even though the paint job of Nanmu models is always out of this world, this is really cool looking. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this gorgeous brand new V-Rex from Nanmu. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our V-Rex, first of all, you can see the skin texture looks phenomenal, and secondly, you can see how good the paintwork is. So we've got a nice dark grayish tone for the majority of the body here of the V-Rex, but they've done a really good job of, I guess, dry brushing the detail out, or maybe giving it a nice light wash, but you can see there's like a really light kind of a grayish wash that's been applied to the model, and it just pops so nicely within each and every scale, making the details stand out in the most realistic way possible. And as you get closer to the jawline, you can see the coloration lightens up a little bit. We have kind of like a light grayish tone there as well, and you can really see that they definitely have dry brushed some of the scales out and everything as you get closer to the jawline. That looks really cool. The eye as well is super nicely done. Look at how nicely painted that eye is. Perfect gloss coat on it as well. And then as you move down, you can obviously see the mouth is sculpted in an open position. The skin is stretching here on the inside of the mouth very nicely. It's also got some nice variation of color in there. And then we've got, of course, our tongue right there, sculpted out. Some nice texturing to the tongue. Nice wash has been applied to that as well to make sure the detail pops. You can see the same deal for the inside of the mouth on the lower jaw. And then, of course, the same thing, if we can get a good shot of it, for the upper side of the inside of the mouth. And look at all the variation of color in there. That is incredible looking. The detailing is honestly insane in there, but the paintwork as well looks really, really nice. You can actually see the throat back there and everything, and it looks like it has a genuine, real throat. Incredibly impressive realism on the part of Nanmu. And of course, we have the teeth sculpted out very nicely. There's almost like a slight slit right there, almost like an injury that this V-Rex has sustained at some point. But on top of that, we also have those kind of classic, realistic looking teeth from Nanmu. You can see they look great as far as the overall appearance goes. They also have been given kind of like a brownish wash to give them that slightly dirty sort of a look that you always see on the Nanmu models, and I think it looks incredible. I just love how sporadic and erratic looking the teeth are on the V-Rex, and they absolutely captured that perfectly as far as this Nanmu version. But as you lead up here to the top of the head, again, we have the nice dark grays. We also have that light wash, and actually looking at it, it looks like it's a light bluish wash, and that's pretty cool because sometimes when you look at the V-Rex, it looks more like a gray. Sometimes you look at it and it looks like a bluish, like a really dark bluish tone. So we kind of have like a mixture of both with this one, which kind of gives it that sort of grayish, but at the same time slightly bluish sort of a look. Very nice paintwork on the part of Nanmu. As you move down the course of the body, you got that kind of armored sort of a look leading off of the head down the course of the neck with those very large scoots, and you continue to see that same style of detailing as far as the skin texture through the majority of the figure. As you move down, though, you can see that those scoot-like scales do decrease in size quite drastically. There's also some nice tensing and some nice wrinkling in the skin there. As you lead to the underside of the neck, you can also see more of that down there. Leading back into the body a little bit further, you do see those kind of scoot-like scales lead down toward the arm, down around the shoulder area, and then down into the arm itself. They do taper off, though, as you lead out into the arm, and you can see that the arm is nicely sculpted. You have a little bit more of that running along the top of the arm, out into the fingers, though. But it all looks incredibly well done. Extremely nice looking paintwork, again, for this with that nice light wash. You can also see the fingers are sculpted nicely. There's some bends in the fingers, giving it a little extra life. Also some nice paintwork for the fingernails, and they do have a gloss coat. And then as you lead back up here into the stomach region, you can see again that the detail looks great. We can almost make out the rib cage a little bit right there. You can also see that we have a brownish tone for the lower part of the dinosaur, and then of course our grays and bluish wash up here. It's like a light grayish blue wash. It's very hard to explain, but really cool looking overall. But you can also see that there's kind of like some light dry brushing and stuff that's been applied to the lower part of the stomach, and actually the entire lower part of the dinosaur, to give that area color variation as well. You can see a little bit of girth there in the stomach, so it looks like it's a pretty well-fed V-Rex. You can also see again more of that somewhat armored sort of a look running along the back of the dinosaur, and you can really make out the fact that that wash has like a bluish tint to it as you move along the back, I would say. You've got the hip bone right there. As you move down the course of the thigh, the muscle definition is very nicely done. Again, all of the detail continues to look exactly as I recall on the V-Rex. As you move down, you can see the kneecap. Also, the muscle definition as you lead into the knee is super impressive looking. We do have a seam right there where the knee is connected to the lower part of the leg. You can definitely pick out the seam. Not all that, obvious, but it is definitely there. You also have a nice big bulging calf muscle, very smooth transition in the color as we move back toward those brownish tones again on the rear of the leg. You have those scoots moving down the front of the leg. As you move down the course of the shin down into the foot, you again have those scoots leading all the way down into the toes, and the paintwork again looks great as far as the light wash and the grayish tones, and you also again have nicely painted nails. And I love that Nanmu always goes a little bit above and beyond when it comes to painting their models to give them even more life, like including different tones of color on the nails just to give them again that extra bit of realism. But as you lead back up into the tail, you can see again that we have this super nice looking paintwork as we lead out. Very nice tensing tail as we lead out, but we do have a nice curve to the tail as well. You can see a really gorgeous curve. It almost looks like the V-Rex is kind of changing positions at the last moment to, again, try to chase down one of those pterosaurs that we had seen in the artwork, because the entire body is turning, as I smack the backdrop, is turning in that position. We also have that kind of trademark appearance to the tail of the V-Rex, again, something that is definitely present on the dinosaur in the film. As you run along the underside, you again see how nice looking that detailing is. You've also got a cloaca, again, something that Nanmu has recently begun incorporating into their models, which I love, because I love having little bits of realism like that added to the models. You can also see we've got some larger scales here as we lead up into the underside of the chest of the dinosaur, kind of like scoots moving up into the chest, and then we lead up into the throat. And it actually looks like you could see the throat itself. Like, I almost expect it to like swallow and that throat to move. Crazy, crazy impressive detailing. And then you can see pretty much the same thing, of course, for the opposing side of the head. Again, the really nicely painted eye. As you move down into the neck, you can see the seam again a little bit right there for the head. Not really all that obvious, though. And then as you move down, again, the same type of detailing, the same type of texturing and tensing here in the neck of the V-Rex, again with the turn in the head. Maybe a little bit less creasing, a little more stretching because it's turning away from us. But you can see the arm is in a different position slightly from the other side. But I like that. I think it makes sense because of the turn in the dinosaur. I feel like that's pretty much exactly what would be occurring with the arms as the dinosaur is turning. So really nice attention to detail, I would say, on the part of Nanmu. And there you can get a good look at what the front of the arms and the hands look like. Again, really nicely sculpted fingers there, and they definitely got the correct digits as far as this goes, because even though it is technically like a T-Rex, we do have 3 fingers for the dinosaur. And then as you lead back up here into the stomach, you can see a bit less of the stomach over here because the leg is taking a pretty good step forward, so it's kind of obscuring the stomach right there. And then as you lead back up here, you can see all of the detail curving again as the body curves with the movement and the turn. It shows that off very nicely in the sculpt and the fine detail of the sculpt. You again have the immense thigh here, really impressive muscle definition. As you move down, you again do have that seam right here where the leg is connected, but I think Nanmu actually has been doing a pretty good job of kind of hiding the seams for the most part, and unless you go looking for it, you're probably not really going to notice that. You can also again see the muscle definition in the calf. You can see how the calf is pushing into the thigh and how they're both kind of reacting right there to each other and kind of tensing and flexing. But as you lead down, you can see this foot sculpt is obviously picking up off of the ground, and this looks really good, very realistic, I would say, as far as the way that the toes curve and the entire foot is positioned. Definitely a very nice, very realistic looking sculpt as far as the way that the foot and toes would be reacting to the step that it's currently taking. Again, nice gloss coat for the toenails. You can see the dew claw over there now. And then as you lead back up here, you can see how the skin is stretching off of the tail, again, as the dinosaur's taking a pretty good, impressive step forward. And you can see the entire curvatures of the tail, yet again, like we had just seen on the initial side. And then we've also got the base. And the base, you can see again, is just a nice earthy area, nothing overly impressive, but we do have quite a large amount of bones laying around again, as we have like skulls of different, I guess, varying ages as well, of different Kongs or apes related to Kong, and you can see that is pretty much all over the place as we again have just scattered bones, mostly skulls, but there are other bones and stuff included. And the earthy area itself, the texturing looks really good, the paintwork looks really good. We have some nice variations of blacks and browns added to the earthy area to give it a really nice, very realistic look, and the bones themselves are also painted really nicely, also given a nice brownish wash to kind of make them look a bit dirty like you probably would expect to see. And they did a very good job, I think, as far as painting this out very nice, very carefully, and you can see that as you look through, there's not really any sloppiness that I'm picking up on. I also do like, though, that we have kind of like what looks to almost be other bones that are laying here, but they're kind of covered in dirt, so you can almost see as they're being buried as we, progress with the amount of kills that this V-Rex has created. You can kind of see, like, again, older bones that are somewhat buried. And then here on the underside, you can again see Shadow Monarch. You can also see the Nanmu logo, and you can see it is a limited edition of 498, and there is my limited edition number right there. But definitely a really cool base to go with an awesome V-Rex. As far as a size goes for a length, the length might not be quite as impressive as you might think it would be for the size of the model, because the entire body is curled toward us, so it kind of shortens the length of the dinosaur. I would actually say, I guess that's about the length there, the furthest point. So you're looking at a little over 12 3/4 inches, almost at 13 or just shy of about 33 centimeters, maybe a little over 32 and a half. And the highest point is definitely the hip region, so you're probably not going to have a great view of this. But height-wise, you're looking at about 7.5 inches or around 19 centimeters, somewhere in that vicinity for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our V-Rex. And if we actually move back just a hair and give you a good shot here, a good wide shot of everything, you can see that every model, every figure in here, they're all so much smaller than this V-Rex. It's actually quite a bit larger than I was expecting it to be, honestly. I thought it would probably be similar in size to the older release of the V-Rex, and although it's not too far off, it's definitely a bit larger. And to show you that, there is the older Nanmu V-Rex next to the newer Soul of the Dragon version, and you can definitely see a pretty big size difference here between the two. You can also notice something that I didn't really pay attention to previously, that we have quite a bit of a different color scheme, honestly. Even though they overall look very similar in coloration, they at the same time look different because the tones of color used on the older one, especially when it comes to the upper body, is quite a bit different, honestly, from the newer one. And we also have kind of like a striping, a slight striping that moves down the tail of the older one. We don't see that on the newer one. And they did do one thing that's definitely good for the newer one, is they actually corrected the tail, because the older one didn't have that kind of trademark tail that we have on the V-Rex. For the newer one, Nanmu kind of missed that the first time around, so they definitely have corrected that with the newer one, making the newer one, I would say, pretty much a definitive V-Rex. And just to kind of show you, you can see the tail here for the older one and how it just came to a nice point, whereas the newer one has that almost kind of like an arrowhead sort of an ending to the tail. So they definitely did a great job of upgrading the newer one to make it more screen accurate. And then for another comparison, we have the Rebor V-Rex here next to the Nanmu version, which yet again you can see is a massive difference in size, also a massive difference in quality. Even though I love the Rebor version, I think they as well did a fantastic job on that figure. The quality and just the paint, is quite a world of difference between the two. I think Nanmu definitely did a great job as far as their actual paint application and the realism of their paint application. The Rebor one is pretty good, there's nothing wrong with that one. It's just not quite, I would say, at the level of paintwork here for the Nanmu version, but also you can see it's quite a bit smaller as well. And since this is such a brand new release, going with the other brand new release of the Giganotosaurus, here are one of the newer Nanmu Giganotosaurus here next to the V-Rex, which you can see they are pretty similar in size overall, honestly. I think the size between these two is way closer than pretty much any other figure that we've seen so far. So if you happen to have one of these newer Giganotosaurus from Nanmu, you'll have a pretty good idea of the size of the V-Rex. And then, of course, you would want the Nanmu Tyrannosaurus here in for a stand-in when it comes to a comparison with the V-Rex, because that might be the most popular figure from Nanmu so far, would be that T-Rex. So definitely one that I felt like would be a good one for a comparison. And then we also have a comparison with the randoms that I've been using lately, as we have the Collectae Dimetrodon, the Schleich Diabloceratops, and Safari Ltd U Tyrannus here next to the V-Rex, just to continue ironing out a size. And then for one final comparison, here is the Rebor Gorilla. And I know a lot of people probably would have wanted to see a comparison with the Rebor Gorilla, because one of the gorillas has a Kong paint scheme. I actually never purchased the Kong version. I kind of regret that sometimes, and I do still kind of want to get a hold of one. I don't know if it's actually still available for sale or not, because I know Rebor kind of like silently cancels things or retires them after so long. So it may or may not be available, I'm not too sure. I'll have to look into getting it, but unfortunately, again, I don't have the Kong paint variant. I only have this version here, so if you are interested in a comparison, it's the same figure, just a different paint scheme. So this brand new Nanmu Soul of the Dragon V-Rex is absolutely incredible. Definitely an awesome release from Nanmu, one that I am beyond hyped to have in my collection, because this is easily the best V-Rex I have currently in my collection. There is just no doubt about that. The sculpt is incredibly well done. Very nice, very highly detailed. Again, all of the fine detail you would expect from a Nanmu release is present on this Soul of the Dragon version of the Shadow Monarch V-Rex. And on top of that, they've chosen a really cool, very dynamic pose for this one. And I love how they get very creative at times when it comes to the Soul of the Dragon poses and stuff that we see on the models, and this is definitely a great one from Nanmu. Really love the kind of action pose that we have going on here, and I also love that with the card they kind of show you what's going on, as it would be the V-Rex chasing away some pterosaurs from its area, but you could also, put and incorporate pretty much anything into here, and it would just be a V-Rex hunting. So, it's really up to you in the way you want to display it. But on top of that, the paintwork on this is incredible. I would honestly say this might be one of Nanmu's best when it comes to their paint job, because the paint job is just ultra realistic and super well done. They've done a great job of adding in some nice light washes. They've done a great job with dry brushing and also adding all sorts of alternate tones of color as you move through the body, just giving it an incredibly realistic look. And of course, you have all the other things that are pretty much trademarks of Nanmu as far as realism go, like the inside of the mouth looking phenomenal, the nice eye paint having that nice, very realistic and high quality look with the gloss coat, the nails having variation of color and a gloss coat, and now the addition of cloacas on Nanmu models is also quite cool. On top of that, you have a really cool base, and of course you need the base when it comes to a dinosaur like this to hold it up as it's kind of running along on one foot. You definitely couldn't have this thing standing, I would imagine, and not have it fall over. So the base is pretty much a necessity, and the base is also nicely done. Again, nice earthy area. You've got all kinds of bones and stuff laying around, showing you that this V-Rex is currently in its actual lair, its area, so I think that's pretty cool as well. So again, this is another awesome release from Nanmu, definitely one worth picking up. I purchased mine from Lana Time Shop. I don't know positively if they have any left of the Shadow Monarch version of the Soul of the Dragon. I will include a link, of course, in the description to Lana Time Shop, where you can head on over there, check, and maybe acquire yourself one. So make sure you check those links in the description. Go see if they are in stock, because again, I'm not entirely positive at this point, as they are limited edition, obviously 498, and I know they sell pretty quickly, so hopefully there's at least a few in stock. Maybe you guys can grab one if you haven't already. Otherwise, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.